Hello and hi again to Dr. English YouTube channel. This is Dr. Murphy. I'm a PhD in broad linguistics and I've been teaching for many years. Today's lesson is very important, like some of the other video sessions that I had and recorded for you. And today's lesson is about adverbs of frequency. In the other videos, you might have seen my other video session that I talked about, or in which I talked about adverbs. Well, in there, I talked about the function of the adverb, what role adverbs play. Adverbs are words that modify or describe usually the verb of the sentence, the action of the sentence. Sometimes they refer to or they describe and modify some other adverbs or adjectives. Like when you say, for example, very beautiful, here very is the adverb for beautiful, which is an adjective. But sometimes you have like very beautifully, right? You do something like very beautifully. That's another story. So it describes or modifies another adverb. But here, we're going to talk about adverbs of frequency. These are the words, these are the adverbs that modify the number of times we do something. The number of times we do something. Hence, the name, the title, frequency. Frequency means the number of times of doing something, right? Well, I wrote from the most positive or the highest form of the adverb, adverbs of frequency, like always, which is close to 100%. This is what we do every day, every time. So we say always. If you come down a little bit and decrease the percentage like to 80%, then we'll have usually, like regularly. We do it, like we usually go to work, okay? But in the first example, I always brush my teeth. It means that I do it every day, every noon, for example, okay? And 70% we use often. For 50 or roughly 40% we use sometimes. Sometimes we use at times or on and off. So there are different vocabularies or adverbs you may hear here and there, right? Like for often we use frequently sometimes, okay? Or sometimes they put like most often, right? For sometimes, as I said, at times or sometimes, occasionally, well, this is about 30%. And some people use like for 20%, something like seldom, okay? So there are other adverbs of frequency I didn't put, but I wrote the most common. Well, this is what you can do and analyze most of the text, and you can also follow this pattern and use your own formulas in order to communicate what you want to say. Well, and 10% hardly ever. Of course, this is an American adverb of frequency, hardly ever. Usually British people use rarely or hardly alone, without the ever part, okay? So that's why I put it in the parentheses. And 0%, never. We don't do it. Like this example, you never listen to me, that's the problem you have, all right? Or these are the results you can see. Well, or for hardly ever, for example, I hardly ever go to the movie theater. For the occasional watch TV. It's not good to watch TV every time, like usually or always. Or she sometimes washes the dishes at home. Or he often does exercises, okay? He doesn't do it like always or usually, okay? As you might have noticed, we use the adverb of frequency between the subject and the main verb. Between the subject and the main verb. And usually we use simple present tense in the sentence, right? Simple present tense, I emphasize, okay? So we do use adverbs of frequency usually in order to refer to the present time or present real-time events. Of course, it is also acceptable if you use adverbs of frequency or the simple past tenses, right? That's another story. But usually, as I said, we use simple present tense as the main verb of our sentence. And before that, or between the subject and the main verb, we use the adverbs of frequency. However, we can use adverbs of frequency either at the beginning of our sentence or rather at the end in order to emphasize, to be more emphatic, to stress our points more than or underscore it. We can use adverbs of frequency either at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence instead of the usual position of adverb of frequency, which goes between the subject and the main verb. Now we come to the very important subject of how we can ask about adverbs of frequency. So I took the time actually, I cleaned the examples that I gave you here. But I came up with this question, like how often do you go to the swimming pool? How often do you go to to the simple. This often, right, does not refer to the often, which means 70%, right? So I don't mean that often. When you want to ask about all of them, all of the adverbs of frequency, we ask following this formula, this pattern. How often? It doesn't mean, like, we don't say how occasionally or how usually or how always. So this is a fixed expression in order to ask about adverbs of frequency. So how often do you go to the simple? How often, for example, do you wash the dishes at home? How often do you go to the movie theater? How often do you do exercises? How often do you listen to English lectures? How often do you, in fact, for example, go to university to listen to some lectures? All right? How often do you watch movies? How often do you listen to radio? So this is a fixed expression. How often do you do something? Do you go to the swimming pool? These are the possible answers, like I occasionally go to the swimming pool. Or I go to the swimming pool every day, every night. I go there or I go to the swimming pool once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, or once a year. So these are the possible answers to the question using this expression, how often. And how often, this is a fixed or a stock phrase we use in the questions to ask about adverbs of frequency. Thank you very much for watching this. And if you have any comments or questions, drop your questions and comments in the comments below. I would be appreciative and grateful if you do so. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to like and subscribe.